What was that? I think we can all say that we're glad that that game is just done and over with. I don't want to do it, but here's a quick recap.
To the end zone, that's intercepted. Sounder kick, and it's a short kick. Max Bredesen, that ball came out, and the Falcons have it.
Oh, come on!
McCarthy, and he's picked off again near the 5-yard line by Jordan Oladokun.
I'm going to throw up. I think I'm going.
McCarthy, he's going backwards. Got away, and now we'll just throw that one near the 20 and going up and trying to pick it off. It is a clean interception.
He threw up. Oh, this is ugly.
If you want a quick breakdown, good job defense, horrible job offense. Granted, that doesn't come down to the whole team, but man alive, that was rough to watch. And of course, the defense wasn't without issues as well. There were several huge pass plays that happened against a secondary that is still missing some key players. So I don't know how long they're expected to be out, but hopefully they'll be back in time for conference play starting up this next week. But the offense, one giant oof. After that first drive, everybody thought it was going to be smooth sailing, but productivity quickly dropped off a cliff after that. I said it at the beginning of this season where I thought that Michigan was going to hold on to that TCU loss and be reminded of it every time before they started a game on being they could lose any game. Well, apparently, maybe they weren't thinking about a whole lot before this one because they seemed like they were just a few steps away from giving Bowling Green a whole lot of ground to close that scoring gap. But in the end, they did pull away. They did get the 31-6 win. But man, there's a lot to talk about. Let's start off with the biggest, scariest thing that happened, and that was JJ's performance. Before we jump into more specifics of the breakdown, let me just say I am really glad that this, if it was going to happen this season, happened now. Because if this performance happened against any of the other remaining teams on Michigan's schedule, the outcome could have been much different. Honestly, what I would do is I would take this and put this somewhere where everybody sees it every practice, every day. Maybe not the score because the score is a little deceiving, but just stats and being like, hey, you're not far removed from this performance. And if you're not careful, you could repeat it. And just making sure that they don't do that again. It was super uncharacteristic for JJ McCarthy to have not just a couple issues, but so many issues, off-target passes and multiple interceptions, bad decision-making, very uncharacteristic. So again, I'm really hoping that this is the game that he gets most of out of his system because let's face it, he's not going to be perfect for the rest of the season, but maybe this gets everybody back on track. I mentioned the TCU game at the end of last season, but I also talked about the Michigan State game back in 2021, where it's just like the teams sometimes have those performances where they get them refocused. I never really thought that this team in 2023 would need to get refocused after most of the players experiencing the MSU loss of 2021 and then the surprising poor performance against TCU at last season. And so my expectation was that they were going to take each Saturday quite seriously. And not to say they didn't take this seriously, but this was way unusual. Something was off, and it was more than just JJ. JJ wound up going 8 for 13 with 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. 3! That still blows my mind. Now, if you want a really surprising fact after this game, I mentioned before that JJ was the #1 quarterback in the nation as far as completion percentage goes. So he was throwing over 80%. And this game, he was throwing in the low 60s. Guess how far he dropped after this game? He dropped from #1 to #2. shockingly enough. Yes, he is still just number 2 in the nation as far as completion percentage goes. So that shows you how good he was doing in those first 2 games. Get back to the drawing board, get back to week 1 and week 2, and let's continue to see that JJ moving forward. Some other things of note, Blake Corum had 12 carries for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. It looked like the Blake Corum and Roman Wilson show again. That is until Cornelius Johnson got involved and had a touchdown off the crazy tip pass from that night. That could have been, was very close to being another interception for JJ McCarthy. If it had not been for Johnson, forget if he had caught it. If it had not been for Johnson's awareness, that Bowling Green defender could have intercepted that pass. And so, as I mentioned before, the defense did quite a good job. There were definitely some broken plays, but if everything else had gone according to plan, I wouldn't have come down too hard on the Michigan defense. The Michigan running defense did fantastic. Bowling Green was only able to put up 79 rushing yards. And if you're going to talk about defense performance, you got to talk about Chris Jenkins and Quentin Johnson. Jenkins, I love so much. I'm going to thoroughly enjoy calling out his name in these videos throughout the season. He's exciting to watch and just an electric player, and did a fantastic job on Saturday. And then Quentin Johnson, if you were watching it on live TV, he came out of nowhere for that interception. So fantastic job for him, and really excited to watch both those players throughout the year. The defense altogether did rack up 3 sacks and 10 tackles for loss. On the other side of the ball, it is worth mentioning that Michigan did finally give up its first sack of the year against Bowling Green. I myself was happy to see Turner get back on the field and get a field goal attempt, and he was able to hit a 42-yarder. So definitely getting a little bit more comfortable there and seeing that when the kicking unit is going to be needed, that they will have the capability of being able to hit some of those longer field goals. Of course, one glaring issue that I didn't even bring up yet is the Bredesen fumble on the kickoff, which is very unlikely, but again, kind of nice that happened now, because those are just mental things that you really need and want to lock down before you face those tougher opponents. Because really, if a player like that catches the ball, one of the best things might just be to go down and secure it so that you don't run into those turnover issues. Those are some special team issues that I'm sure that they're going to go over. And this game really opens up the conversation for them to identify things and hone in on them more. Because really, when you're riding off the success of week 1 and week 2, you kind of coast over things and don't really look at some of the specifics sometimes. So this, right before Big Ten play kicks off, might have been good timing. Another thing about good timing is Harbaugh will be back. Honestly, I was talking to some people on social media during Saturday, and I didn't think that Harbaugh was going to have that much of an impact, but maybe he is a bigger part of the spirit of this team. Not saying that he wasn't involved before, but just you don't often know the impact of someone until they're removed from a situation. And so even though a lot of times Coach Harbaugh is still there during the week, but he's not there for game day, you don't really know what it's going to look like. And maybe it was kind of covered up with the success that the Wolverines had in week 1 and week 2. But I honestly kind of feel like you really got to see some of that where Harbaugh was missing. The team really felt like it would have made a difference if he was able to be there on Saturday. Now, I know, say what you will, like he's not going to stop somebody from making an interception and things of that nature, but his input, his coaching, his insight can have an impact and could have changed the trajectory of some of the things that happened on Saturday night's game. So I think all of us can say is we're happy that game is done. We're happy to be moving forward. We're excited for Big Ten conference play to start. And honestly, this feels like a fluke game for Michigan. So next week will tell us a whole lot more on, was it a fluke, or are these real issues that we're going to have to be watching for every week for this season? If this is your first season watching these videos, I must say thanks for checking them out and thanks for sticking with us, because honestly, things really get their traction when conference play starts. We're going to be at week 4 coming up. We're going to have a lot more game footage that we're going to be able to look at, a lot more statistics, be able to break things down more and get a better idea of the opponent for Michigan, and then what Michigan has accomplished so far too, to compare the teams and talk more in depth about them. So I'm really excited about that and looking forward to doing our first breakdown for Big Ten play when Michigan is going to be hosting Rutgers this coming Saturday. So thanks for hanging out, everybody. Congratulations on surviving Saturday night. Let's hope that that game, and that kind of play can be put behind us in the past for this season. And I hope you all enjoy your week. We'll be back later for the preview of Rutgers. Until next time, go Blue.